Welcome to the Landlord Chick podcast, the podcast that helps you take control of your real estate investing journey, one step at a time. I'm your host, Karina Brown-Ufinger, and each week we dive into strategies, tips, and stories from the world of real estate investing to help you build wealth, create passive income, and achieve financial freedom. Well, hello there. It's been a while. Again, I know I said that back in April. I was back. That was stupid. For those of you that are new to this podcast or haven't listened consistently, you probably noticed the gap in the episodes between, I think it was August of 2023 and then roughly the end of March 2024, beginning of April 2024. So I'm not going to go into everything again. There's a pretty big episode on that. I think somewhere around the January timeline. But for those of you that are new, first off, I'm a real estate broker, which means in the state of Wisconsin, I can buy and sell real estate. I'm a property manager in southeastern Wisconsin. I'm a real estate coach, which means I teach other people how to be an investor. And I'm also a teacher, so I did travel, I should say, throughout Wisconsin and sometimes northern Illinois to teach people in class format how to be a rental investor. I'm also a rental investor myself. I'm actually a fourth generation real estate investor, but I gained a lot of knowledge from my parents and then my grandparents as well. So that's my bio. And as far as why this has been sporadic, just really briefly, my mother died in November of 2023, and she was my everything, really. Yes, I'm a married woman. Yes, I'm, in my 30s. But my mother and I had a very special relationship for a number of reasons. And so when we learned she was going to be dying, it really kind of shocked me. And it was something that I wasn't ready for at this age. I wasn't ready for it in general in my life. I don't think you're ever really ready for it, but I think for me, in that particular place, she was younger. I just kind of had in my head, oh, well, we've got, 10 more years or 15 more years, maybe even 20 if I'm lucky. But unfortunately, that really wasn't the plan. So last year I lost my mother and then I lost myself. And I really thought in April I was okay to come back, but honestly, that was stupid. That was really stupid. Because if I'm being fully honest there, I was only 3 months into a sobriety journey. I was only 4 months into the grief, but yet I hadn't actually really started the work on the grief. If you've ever lost somebody really close to you, you know that there's grief, but then you have to work on the grief. You don't just get through it, you work on it. And I really had just started to work on my grief when I restarted this podcast. So that was really a dumb decision because I was nowhere near where I needed to be. So here I am 6 months later after the last episode, and I can honestly tell you that I am in a much better place than when I first came back in March or April. I did a lot of soul searching. As I said earlier, I lost myself after I lost my mother because my mother was so intertwined to my identity that I didn't really know who I was without her. And I had to kind of rediscover a lot of things about myself because my mother was such an integral part of my thinking, what I chose to do, how I ran my days. So I really sort of had to become a whole new person and discover who I am after her. And part of that did come some professional self-discovery. I'm very grateful to be able to be in a position where I could take some time to think, deep think. If you aren't a person who's ever done a sabbatical, by the way, which I feel I'll do an episode about how to do a sabbatical, you need to. And really don't think sabbaticals are something that's only for people that have 3 months off in a year or things like that. You can easily do a mini sabbatical, but I really have to say that the 1 or 2 mini sabbaticals that I did in the past 6 months really helped me figure out where I wanted to be professionally now and what I was as a person personally, and then where I wanted my life to go in the immediate future and then the distant future, because I had to replan and refigure out all of that. Well, what came out of this was that I really began to figure out and prioritize, really truly prioritize, like list them from number 1 to I think number 5, what my passions were in my vocation, in my professional life. And really what it comes down to is, I think number 1, I said that I'm passionate about teaching. Part of teaching is having this podcast and being here to share my stories, my insights, my tips that I've learned from my parents and my grandparents. So really for me, teaching was something I knew I was very passionate about, teaching rental investors how to function and how to be a rental investor. And then second, but probably sort of very similar, the coaching. I've always enjoyed coaching in real estate, but I've never really made, how do I put this? I've never really overtly advertised myself with it. And a lot of that comes from a certain lack of confidence. That is also something that I worked on in my little 6-month sort of mini-esque sabbatical here. I say mini-esque because it wasn't completely 6 months off from everything, obviously, because at that point in April, I'd already taken like 3 months off for real from most everything. So I don't have the luxury of like doing that for like a year. But I haven't been very good at marketing myself as a coach. I've sort of coached people mostly that end up like in my little circle. And I realized, you know what? I really like this. It's another way that I can serve people, because one thing I've learned about myself in the past couple months, as I've done this deep thinking, is I like serving people. I like being of use to people, and I like being of help to people. So it just sort of flows naturally that in my vocation, I would like coaching people. Then third, and not really sort of like, see, here's the thing. It's not third in regards to like, oh, I'm going to work on this third, but I think as far as where my passion is number 3, my own portfolio. And I'm going to talk about this in December, I think, because I honestly have a legit 6-month calendar planned out now for this podcast. So I know we have to finish up a series that I just started in April. So we're going to finish that up, and then we're going to get into my new schedule of content. But in regards to my own real estate investing, I realize that I really, truly am passionate about that at this point. There's a lot of things that I can do with the direction of my personal life if I do actually focus and execute upon that. Don't get me wrong, like in 2021 and 2022, I did trying to execute upon it. There are a couple podcast episodes from then where I talk about a couple deals that I ended up passing on, that I was negotiating, working on, things like that. So I was working on it. But then when my annus horribilis of 2023 hit, it just wasn't even a back burner thing. It legit wasn't even on the burner. Like, it was in the freezer downstairs in the basement, basically. Like, it was just nowhere near the front of my mind at that point. Well, now I'm realizing that, you know what? I really want to be as passionate as I was about it in 2021 and 2022, because it's going to help me get further fulfillment in my life from being able to do other things with my life. So what are those other things that I want to do with my life? You're like, what are these other things? You keep saying like your personal life, blah, blah, blah. Well, getting back to the idea of being able to serve people, and I feel a large calling to do that. I want to be more active in charitable organizations, and I don't want to just be able to monetarily donate to them more. Like, of course, that would be great, but I want to actually donate time, because one thing I've realized, as I think I'm technically a millennial. Am I on the cusp? Am I either like a millennial or a Gen Z, or I'm kind of like a blender mix, or Gen X. I'm a blender mix of the two, maybe. But as a person of my generation, what I've realized is that there's a large need for volunteers and community involvement right now. Whereas like my parents' generation definitely was much more involved in the community and organizations at my age now. And it's the complete opposite of what reality is. So I'm part of a couple different organizations where people that are willing to donate their time and show up for things is vastly understaffed. So I know personally that I want to be a part of that. So I want to be able to get to a point in my real estate portfolio career where I have that passive income, where I can then start devoting maybe 15 hours of my time, 25 hours of my time to areas of passion. So not just like in general charity, but more just like I can I can donate like 10 hours a week to my church in whatever capacity. I can donate 10 hours a week to I'm part of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and so I can donate 10 hours a week to causes that they support. So whether it be, engaging in reading for people that are homebound, hospital, children at the library, historic preservation, grave cleaning, records sort of things. Like I want to be able to donate more time across the board to these organizations and be a part of serving my community. But in order to do that, like I said, I have to get my portfolio a little bit bigger. And I said there'll be an episode in a couple weeks here-ish where I talk about how I'm on the cusp of something big with my portfolio. So anyway, and then fourth, and this is going to sound like surprising to a lot of people, but I like helping people buy and sell real estate. Like I think that's the fourth. Like I like being in on the ground, like the entry ground, because as a property manager, I see a lot of stuff that could have been hedged during the purchase process if the proper questions had been asked, if the proper things had been looked at. For instance, I can't even tell you how many times I've taken on a property management client, gotten the leases, and found out that they're really like not leases. Like the rents don't match the rent roll. There's no documentation of why the rent roll says different than the lease. I've had it where clients come to me after purchasing a property and we get into it. And after like 30, 45 days, we discover that there was a housing tenant. One of the tenants is a housing tenant, and that was not disclosed to my client at any point during the purchase. And that's a big thing because as investors that are familiar with housing, and if you've had it, you may have strong feelings about it either way, but there are people out there that really don't want to take housing in their rental properties for various reasons. I feel like that should be a podcast in itself. So maybe I'll put that on the 7th month of the schedule or something at this point. I don't know. But I was seeing a lot of those things over the years. And so I decided a couple years ago to get my real estate license, and I have closed on transactions, but because of everything else I've been involved in, it's never been something, again, where I've put a lot of focus selling myself and advertising on. So that's why it's number 4. And 5 is property management. Now, I know I have current clients that listen to this and you're like, so wait, you're not as passionate about property management? Like, do I need to go and find a new property manager? I mean, you're not going to manage my property. You're going to do a shitty job with it. The answer to every single one of that is no. I'm not going to do a shitty job with it. I'm going to do the same exact job I've done for you all these years. But what it means for me is that I might not be as actively openly seeking property management in large format. Don't get me wrong. Like if I have the opportunity to work with an investor all the way through, like purchasing and then maybe even rehabbing and then property management, I'm absolutely going to do that. I am. But as far as where I want to put my time that is like outside of day-to-day operations of the property management side, I don't really want to focus on overtly growing it. I'd rather overtly grow my property management through building my own portfolio. So that's what I've discovered about myself professionally over the past couple months. And so because of that, this podcast is back. As I said, teaching is number 1, and this podcast feeds into teaching. So I do have about 6 months of content planned out. I've got a whole new logo. Maybe you saw it when you logged into wherever you listen to this podcast. I'm really working on making this a more professional podcast, not in ways that you would necessarily see. Like, I don't want to give the impression, if you really like my format, the fact that it's just me on here 99.5% of the time. If you like what we've talked about over the years, don't worry. Like, none of that is changing. But when I say more professional with it, like actually learning what it means to have a podcast and grow it. So getting into putting it on other platforms myself, making sure I have a place where I'm putting up maybe podcast notes. Maybe even in the future, who knows? You'll see my face as I record this as video as well. But like step number one for that is cleaning up my studio where I work. And I honestly got to say, that hasn't been a priority in like a year. So if I were to have my camera on right now, you guys would think I was a freaking slob, 100%. Because this room just, I don't do a lot of cleaning in it, like when I'm in here working, but then also on top of that, over the years, or I shouldn't say years, but over the past months, it's been the dumping ground. So like in particular, if we were like cleaning out stuff from my parents' house regarding my mom, and I brought it home, but I wasn't really ready to deal with it. Like I didn't want some of the clothes in my closet yet, the jewelry, wherever, things like that. It would get dumped in boxes in here. And like stuff from her funeral, again, just like dumped in here. So this really became a dumping ground. So anyway, in the future, my hopes is that we can do this where you can see my face if you want to, not while driving, by the way, but like if you wanted to, you could go over onto YouTube and watch an episode of this and actually see my face and see my hand gestures and my face emotions, because I'm a very animated person. You don't know that probably by necessarily listening to this, but every time I record this, there's a lot of hand gestures going on. There's a lot of like facial expressions going on. So I think it'd be entertaining for you guys to be able to see this in video format. Maybe every episode for sure, once in a while, but I need to get to that point. So that's what I'm working on right now. We're going to get back into this podcast. I have right now 3 episodes pre-recorded. And for me, next week, Wednesday, I believe, is another recording day. So I'm going to record another 2 episodes. I'm going to get them scheduled over in my podcast provider. And we're going to be rocking and rolling again. So I want to say to everyone that has been here for over a year now, for sure, and has come back, thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for being so interested in my journey and my knowledge that you waited around for me. Thank you to everyone that did reach out through either Instagram or Bigger Pockets, or some of you legit even like tracked down my property management company and you sent an inquiry to our general inbox, just checking if I was okay, because I hadn't uploaded a podcast in a while, even though I said I was back. So you guys absolutely humbled me with your interest and compassion for my situation. I'm actually getting a little teary-eyed and emotional thinking about it, but sincerely from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because there's something about going through this process, and when your friends express concern and compassion, it makes you feel bolstered and it makes you feel loved. But yet when you have people that are more strangers and they express concern about you when you're going through a deep loss, it does all those things, but then also it sort of gives you a hope and it gives you a sense of reason further. So thank you for doing that and for tracking me down. And legit, I like the people that track down my property management company, like you guys should be freaking like, I swear to God, you guys should be sleuths at this point, because Like, I also recently discovered that my website went down like back in, I don't know, May, and I didn't even know it. Like, I'm sorry to say I didn't even know it. So like when you guys legit tracked me down and got that email address and everything to basically email one of my people on my teams, like I was flabbergasted, and I was like, okay, they need to be a private detective in life or something, because at that point it was really hard to track me down, it turns out. So thank you guys so much for everything. It truly means a lot. I'm happy to be back. I'm looking forward to doing bigger, better, and more awesome things with you guys and being a part of your journey, as well as bringing you along for mine. So until next time, which I promise will not be 6 months, I want to encourage you to invest smart and live boldly. I'll talk to you guys next time. And we'll actually talk about real estate for real, like the whole way through.